Welcome, everyone, to episode 121 of Puppet Masters and Castle Freaks, the internet's leading all things Charles Band podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jared Hornbeck, coming to you, of course, from Brooklyn, New York. And, you know, all you listeners, I knew you'd come. It was inevitable. I had a dream of a livid horse, and its rider's name was Steve Guntley. Steve, did you know you're playing a dangerous game here?
You know, I had a suspicion. Danger is, of course, my middle name, which people don't often realize. But that's right. From here in Austin, Texas, it is me, interstellar Succubus, Steve Guntley. And this is the podcast about extraterrestrial sneaky links, space moonshine, and a whole lot of pus. That's because this is the podcast about Transformations, a movie that truly drives home the perils of immediately hooking up with the first person who randomly drops by your spaceship. I think if there's one thing we can all agree on walking away from this movie, we know now not to do that. Somebody shows up in the inky void of space and wants to throw down with you. You maybe just like pause for 30 seconds and question it. Maybe just hit the brakes the tiniest bit.
I think you're on to something here, Steve.
Yeah, but we are very excited to be talking about this movie because we have a very cool guest joining us for this film. Who is joining us here today, Jared?
Yes, we do have a very cool guest today. I'm super excited because it has been the trend on this show to bring writers on. I know it was sort of the last. I think people were wondering if Steve and I were literate because we were going so quickly just to filmmakers and content creators and YouTubers and podcasters. And then we were like, let's get some writers on here. And so we decided to call up Brooklyn-based writer Clay McLeod Chapman, author of the amazing Wake Up and Open Your Eyes, which was published earlier this year, I believe, actually. Clay, you're like right down the street from me. I could probably yell this podcast out the window to you, but thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Writers get it done. We're the anchor, right? I mean, one could say you can't make a Charles Band movie without a writer.
It starts on the page. The magic begins with the words of its author.
Although we might have tested that theory.
Mm-hmm. Let's be real. It starts at the page, but that page is a poster, and the writing on it is just usually some kind of variant on tiny monster kills.
Yeah, that page might be a bar napkin.
Well, we're very excited to have you here, and thank you so much for selecting this movie. We had kind of a strange, circuitous route of coming to this film. This is a bit of a roulette wheel spin for you. Am I correct that you have never seen this film before?
You know, 25 hours ago, I was blissfully ignorant to this movie's existence. And thanks to you two, gentlemen, I live in a world where I know and have watched Transformations. So I feel like, you know, it's a BC AD sort of situation where like I've lived my life just in complete darkness, but now where I was blind, now I can see.
And how is the mark we've been leaving on people? Like, for better or worse, this is a common complaint / just comment. You know?
And how convenient that you were able to so quickly get glasses frames together that accommodate your newly opened third eye.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. And it's a good look. Yeah.
I do feel like I need space penicillin. But until then, I'll just itch that scratch. That itch. Oh my God.
Itch that scratch. Absolutely. No, we either or. Yeah, no, we had kind of a strange path. You were very accommodating and moved your schedule around to help us out with a snafu. And we learned that one of the movies that you had set yourself down for was actually one of the very many and very strange compilation films that Full Moon puts out all the time, which is just kind of what it sounds like. They retitle it, they give it a new cover, but it's just clips from different levels of Empire or Full Moon movies. No narrative, really. It's just kind of the equivalent of watching a YouTube video.
This was a serendipitous catch on my part, if I must say so myself, because I went to the movie, which is called The Possessed, in the form that we were going to watch it from 2005. And I went to IMDb. I was like, all right, let me see if this is streaming anywhere. Because sometimes, even though there's some Full Moon features ones that were Full Moon distribution and they're not available on the app necessarily. So I said, let me go to IMDb. So I went to IMDb and I saw the first person who was credited in the cast. And I went, oh, I didn't know they were in this. And then I looked at some of the pictures and I went, wait, this is Witch House.
Yeah.
And I went, is this whole movie Witch House? And then because there's like no information on IMDb, I had to like look into, okay, well, what 3 movies is this an amalgam of? And one of them was Witch House. I forget what the other 2. One of them is, I believe, the movie Totem, Totem or Talisman, but it's one that we're covering in the near future. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, that makes no sense to cover it in a truncated half-hour version before we cover the actual movie on the show.
Right.
And the other 2, I think, were ones that we had covered. And I don't even know if there's a wraparound segment that was shot for it. I mean, maybe there is somebody who's a completist and a complete completist. Well, I don't think I've ever said that phrase before, who wants to let us know if there is. Like, we'd love to know, because we probably won't ever cover this thing now because of what it is.
Yeah.
But I looked at it, and then I, like, in a panic, emailed Clay, like, hold on, SOS, we can't do this movie.
So
And,
are they like literally just, I mean, they're not even like compressed storylines. They're just taking
It is. Yeah.
clips. So
That's
like
exactly
no
what it
narrative whatsoever. It's just like, oh, here's another, 5 minutes of this
well,
film.
I don't think
5
they're a
minutes of that.
clip show. I think they're presented in the form of an anthology.
A
So I
little
think
bit.
it's like 3 25-minute stories and presumably some wraparound segment.
Yeah, that's the thing. We covered one movie called The 12 Slaves of Christmas, which kind of stood in as the representative of this whole little subgenre of clip show movies, where they did have like a little wraparound story, and they were also like, basically the narrative of that movie was an advertisement for figurines.
Sure
But
was.
like really it was able to link all that together and give it a narrative reason to exist. And I think there's just varying levels of effort as to how much they're tying it together. They're almost always going to have a new opening credit sequence or something like that, but sometimes they'll just say chapter 1, blah, blah, blah. And they'll rename the movies that they're using. So
Yeah.
It's wild.
it's very cynical, and it's kind of something that doesn't exist anymore now that physical media and like rentals are sort of going by the wayside, because a lot of it, and I'm not shading Charles Band at all. I understand the way the game is played, but a lot of this is sort of following the Mockbuster asylum rules of like, all right, let's fool grandmas at Blockbuster. let's think, Timmy told me about that Possession movie that sounded really good. What was it? Oh, this must be the one. Or that, what was that movie? Atlantic Rim? Yes, I'll rent that one. That's the one he wanted. So it's kind of falling into that.
Have either of you kind of been duped by this? Like you'll press play, click on it and be like watching it, and then like 3 minutes in, you're like, wait a minute, I've seen this already.
I don't know if you could call 12 Slaves of Christmas being duped, like, because we knew what it was beforehand.
Yeah.
Going into it, and we just kept it on the spreadsheet. We doubled it up with another movie, but we wanted to keep it because we released it like right around the holidays. This would have been the first time. Like, had we not had time to course correct, this would have been the first time that we were duped into it. And this would have been a very different recording.
And are we calling this a course correction, though, or did we just steer it into the side of a mountain? It's really hard to say. But either way, the movie that you chose is called Transformations. Let me give a little bit of background on it, because in some markets it's called Alien Transformations, and there's problems with both of those titles. But Transformations was released October 8th, 1991. That is not when it's shot. We'll get into that. It's directed by Jay Kamen. It's written by Mitch Bryan, and it stars Rex Smith, Lisa Langolis, Christopher Neame, Michael Hennessy, Sek Verrill, Benito Stefanelli, Donald Hodgson, and Patrick McNee. Not a whole lot of information on this movie, and this is one that I will admit was fully not on my radar. I have not heard of this. I had not seen this poster before, which is one of my favorite kind of movies to go into. I love going in just completely cold on something. But if IMDb trivia is to be believed, and of course take it with a big old chunk of Himalayan pink sea salt, this was a highly fraught production. The director and the star did not get along. The producers did not get along. The distributors didn't get along. And even Charles Band ended up taking his name off this project after fighting with his producer and then wife, Debbie Dion. Allegedly, she fought to keep the romantic subplot in this movie. He wanted to cut it. She won out in the end. That, coupled with the failure of both Empire, which produced this film, and New World, which distributed this film, resulted in the movie being shelved for 3 years before being kind of dumped onto home video. MGM kind of bought the whole Empire catalog, except for like 1 or 2 different things that Charles Band held on to. So this is under the MGM label on video, but not an MGM film.
And it's about time that I think maybe it's Arrow, somebody, or no, I don't think it's Synapse. It's somebody, but I don't think it's Region A. Somebody is putting out like a Blu-ray quality 1080p Enemy Territory.
Oh, cool.
And
Finally.
the thing is, like, yeah, exactly. And it's like, I kept thinking from the second I saw the MGM logo in the beginning, I was like, why can we not have an Enemy Territory or a Deadly Weapon that looks this good?
Yeah. Totally.
Because watching those both better movies than this one that we'll talk about today.
Yeah.
And harder to watch physically.
Yeah.
Like
harder to
definitely,
find and harder to look at. Yeah.
Yeah. Standard def kind of VHS rips of those movies was where we had to pull from for the show. And it's like, I wish, because we'll say a lot of things about this movie. It looked good. Like the print of it that was on Tubi where I watched it looked good. So there's that.
Probably will not surprise you to learn that it looks so good because they are reusing the set that they used for both Arena and Robot Jocks, which actually are going to be coming out before this movie, shot after, but comes out before. And those are kind of among the better looking, like better production designed films in the whole Empire catalog. That's like, sure. Arena was one of their more expensive productions, and they got some pretty cool stuff out of that. So they have that
better use in those movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Put to much better use. Like they're big, expansive sets that are pretty sparse in this movie.
Yeah. The director here is named Jay Kamen, and he's making his one and only directorial effort here. At the time, he was known in Hollywood as one of the go-to guys for ADR recording. So that's kind of a weird path to becoming a filmmaker, but Jay Kamen apparently just like the guy for ADR in the 80s. So he worked on a lot of big movies. He worked on The Golden Child, Look Who's Talking, So I Married an Axe Murderer, The Quick and the Dead, and a movie I'm going to record an episode about later today, Independence Day. So he's worked on a lot of like big, expensive, elaborate productions. So he was taking on the directorial role here. Apparently did not sit well with him and didn't really direct any more movies after this. Part of that seems to do with the conflict he had with the star. I'm not sure if either of you had ever heard of this guy. His name is Rex Smith. I was not familiar with the oeuvre of Rex Smith. He was a teen idol and a musician who was kind of best known in the mid 80s he was the lead of a really successful revival of Pirates of Penzance on Broadway. Then that was kind of where he was coming from. And there is weirdly a pipeline for like Broadway stars to Full Moon stars. We've seen that happen a few times, like with Laser Blast and like things like that. With lots of like really influential Broadway actors have had Full Moon or Empire careers. And that seems to be the case here. He had a couple of minor soft rock hits, and he was the star of a short-lived Knight Rider ripoff called Street Hawk, which I was not familiar with. But imagine this. What if a talking motorcycle? Fewer wheels, but he's a little bit more flexible. He does seem to be largely retired from film these days. He hasn't done a film since 2016, and mostly he does theater and music productions. But I'm going to use the word allegedly very heavily here because, again, I'm basing a lot of this off of internet rumors and stuff like that. But apparently the slutty nature of his character in this movie is maybe a little bit of a reflection of his slutty nature in real life. One of the saucier IMDb trivia comments, and again, big old chunk of salt, was that Rex Smith was kind of misbehaving and like didn't want to work in the movie and was being kind of difficult. And the only way that the director was able to rein him in was by threatening to tell his wife that he was hooking up with one of the supporting actresses in this movie. So that got him into, and there's an evidence of him like kind of fathering a couple of illegitimate children from other affairs and stuff like that. So, he's lived this role, let's just say.
Slutty Nature is actually one of his radio hits from the 80s. I think the lyrics were like, I can't, Mother Nature, Papa Nature, get together. It's Slutty Nature.
I remember that one.
I could hear it.
Yeah,
there were like
AOR hit at the time.
There were like wind chimes over it.
Papa Nature, you gotta get some of that hot Mama Nature. Slowly Nature.
I'm going to trust you that this is exactly what Rex Smith's music sounds like.
Oh, you don't
because I
have the
no idea.
45? I have the 45. Yeah.
I do not. Yeah. I don't know what I necessarily think about him as an actor. I think this character is wild, and I think I think it is a good time to get in this movie. Like I said, it was delayed for many, many years, and when it came out, it was kind of dumped. And it has a couple of titles. You can either call it Transformations, which is like the title I think it's mostly known under. In some markets, it's Alien Transformations, which is like, yeah, okay, maybe a little bit more specific, but still somehow not. You know, like it's more specific, but less specific. But either way, it poses a big SEO problem. And I know they weren't thinking about that in the late 80s, early 90s, but you already have a much more popular franchise called Transformers that people are going to be Googling for. And then if you even use the other title, you have a much more popular franchise called Aliens. So, you know, you're kind of screwed either way.
Before we get too deep into this movie, Clay, I have two questions for you. One, as a writer, did you have any idea at all that this character whose nickname is Wolf was going to have a transformation of sorts?
Ooh, how'd they do that?
Was that subtle enough for you? Like as a writer, I'm curious.
Tonight, I'm gonna transform into my slutty nature. No, I mean, I'm gonna give Rex Smith some props because I think he's got swagger. Like he has some amazing reaction shots where things just like happen to him and he's just like, oh, okay. Like he does so much with those bedroom eyes that I felt my slutty nature coming
He was
through.
Danny Zuko in Grease for the Broadway production, not the original Broadway cast. I think it was Barry Bostwick was the first one. But by whatever Broadway version was happening at the same time that the movie hit theaters was the version that he was in. And he played Danny Zuko in that. And I think there are some other people of note in the production that he was in too. What I love this, maybe this is the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, is this the first time that we've ever had a connection to Grease on this show?
I don't think so. I'm trying to remember what else there was, but there was somebody else who was in a Grease Broadway production in the 70s, and maybe even in like the first cast. I might also be confusing him with the lead from Laser Blast, who was the original Rocky in the Rocky Horror
I think
Show.
that might be what you're thinking of.
I could be
don't
confusing that.
You know, I talk all the time about, and this is a good way to segue quickly to my second question for Clay before we get too deep into the movie itself. But you know, anybody who's listened to the show knows that I started watching horror movies and stuff really young, and I would watch all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, Friday the 13th, all of those, you know, in the late 80s at age like 8 or 9, just like in my room by myself with my VCR. The movie I might have watched the most outside of Dream Warriors is Grease.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Hey,
like
I did not know that.
We had it on a taped off of cable VHS tape. The weirdest double feature of a VHS tape was that and the I don't know, was it a Monty Python production of the Ruddles, like the fake Beatles,
the fake Beatles
documentary?
Is that Christopher Guest in there? Like
So
it's
it was
like
those
Spinal Tap.
Yeah, those two things were on the same VHS
That's
that we
weird.
had taped in my house, and I don't know why, but I watched Grease so many times that I could never watch it again for the rest of my life, and I would still know every single line of dialogue and every single word to every song.
Yeah.
And it's a weird one. Like I'm noticing, I'm seeing a trend lately of people who on social media are dropping these like unpopular opinions of Grease 2 being better than Grease 1.
All right, let's slow our roll, people here.
Which is not true, first of all. So if you
there's
think
stuff in Grease 2 that I enjoy, but well, let's be real.
Grease 2 is more outwardly campier than the first movie is, which I can appreciate, and obviously I like Michelle Pfeiffer's energy, but none of those songs, and I'm even like Cool Rider included, none of those songs work outside of the context of the movie. We might be
bangers like far down the primrose path if we're talking about Grease 2 right now, but we should find
Tell me more. What do you want us to talk about? Transformations. I And I just feel like, there's so many like songs that were hits outside of the movie that work without outside the context of the movie. I will say this, sexual politics of the movie, not good,
Not so much.
terrible under a 2025 lens. Maybe the second movie's a little more progressive because of the gender swap, but definitely
Again,
not as good of a movie.
That is the one area that Greece has in common with transformations. I think very questionable sexual politics. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, Clay, I was just wondering, were you also, if you could give us like a really brief sort of like little origin story of your experience with like how you saw a lot of horror movies and stuff for the first time, and then how does that kind of tie in with your experience and relationship with Charles Band movies leading up to this one, which none of us had seen going into it.
I mean, I'll be frank, like I grew up, early to mid 80s, and TBS, God bless it, like I think they were showing Tourist Trap on like Saturday afternoons, because like for some reason that movie just seemed to slip under the radar. Like, there wasn't much to edit. Like I think it was rated PG, right?
It was weirdly. Yeah. It's not that gory.
So I was watching that at a point where nobody was watching me. Like I was young enough that it was on TV. There was no kind of discerning kind of like, you shouldn't be watching that, hon. That's, it just slipped past the censors enough that like, I remember watching it at an age where, I mean, up to that point, it might have been Student Bodies or Saturday the 14th.
Sure.
But, there weren't many horror movies that you could watch on TV on a Saturday afternoon and nobody's paying attention and still get messed up. And Tourist Trap messed me up.
Understandably so.
Yeah. It might not have been the first film, but I to this day still have, like, I hold Tourist Trap near and dear purely for the soft trauma of what that movie did to me as a kid. Like I loved it. So many nightmares with that one.
Yeah. I mean, that one's a classic. That one still holds up pretty well, and I still enjoy that. I think there's probably pretty good reason the transformation slipped into obscurity. I'm going to say this is walking a razor's edge on being a Tim Kincaid movie. It's elevated just a little bit by the fact that we can see what's going on. And there are a couple of moments that I found surprisingly effective. But man, this one was a little bit of a rough sit. I think because I have a lot of trouble with this. There's a very kind of rapey subgenre of sci-fi that was popular around this time, around like the late 70s, early 80s. You get things like Inseminoid or Crystal Force or Demon Wind or things like that, where the purpose of it is creatures that are seeking out like sexual violence. And it makes it immediately less fun for me. And this one is really kind of going for it in a gross way. Like obviously there's a
I'm sorry, Steve. Yeah. When that's a motif of a movie, it needs to be done well. And it's done probably the best it could be in Humanoids from the Deep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which is like, it's still pretty icky, but at least it understands like the subversiveness of it. I don't know if this movie, like, I think charitably, you could say there's a metaphor here for maybe the AIDS crisis, maybe just like STDs in general, about like this kind of, 80s crackdown on like the free spirit 60s and 70s. It's like 80s are all about like fearing the consequences all of a sudden. The free will and hippie ways of our parents are gone, and so it's kind of playing into a lot of that cultural paranoia. Again, I'm being very, very charitable because I don't think that's first and foremost in this movie's mind, but it's a theme that you could like glom onto if you want to sort of justify its existence. But
how dare you? This is a dense, rich text.
layered text for sure. But
this is certainly not just General Hospital in space.
No, definitely not. I mean, it does get so melodramatic and so silly, and like there's this whole prison planet element of it too that we can get into as well. But so it's got a little bit of that subgenre as well, which we touched on with like Savage Island and stuff like that. The women in prison exploitation kind of era of that. There's a lot of those kind of coming together, but this is so late in the 80s that these feel archaic already. It feels kind of out of date. Like the fact that this came out in the 90s, people must have been looking at it in 1991 and just being like, what sewer did this escape out of? Like, seriously, this feels so dated. I don't know if anybody had a different experience with this movie than I did.
I want to advocate for horniness in space.
I'm down. No, I'm down with horniness in space for sure.
Well, as long as you take precaution and you don't want any of those space TDs that are going around in this movie.
Better title, by the way, Space TD. Okay, sorry, continue.
No, but just like the idea of like an intergalactic VD. Like what was it? Ice pirates with like space herpes?
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of enamored with the idea, the notion of like when you're in space, it's really lonely and like I don't know, like that there is this kind of like drifting STD that just like pops up on your space shuttle with no kind of like introduction beyond like it's just there, like it's on the ship with you, and you're going to kind of the baton gets passed, and off it goes. And I don't know, like it is in a way, you know, if you think of like Alien as this kind of you know, the Ridley Scott Alien, like that, you know, here, like that in of itself is a invasive sexualized kind of thing that transmits itself from one body to the next.
Absolutely.
Well, Clay, you know what they say, in space no one can hear you cream.
Oh, you log off right now.
You've been holding on to that one. But it's trying. Like I think that there are the elements of, you know, the morality of it, like, you know, that you have this one kind of priest who's kind of espousing the kind of like the biblical plague. I don't know, like I don't know if I would be charitable to it. Like it's an awful movie, but I actually found myself kind of enjoying it for its kind of broken down, kind of corrosive.
That is what we've been doing on this show. Honestly, it's like some of the stuff that we watch, you know, and even the people making the movie, they know they're making something quick and cheap and sort of, in a lot of cases, objectively bad. Not to say you can't make a good B movie.
No,
there are plenty of them, but definitely the attitude that we've been bringing into the movies is like, we're going to start with the fact that it's established this is not a particularly good movie, but what is it that we like about it?
Yeah, we're going to meet it where it lives.
Charitable about it. And I'll say, to piggyback off of where I thought you were going before, Clay, with this, is like, I will be charitable to Patrick McNee.
Yeah.
Because I think his performance is like, he's giving a performance that this movie doesn't deserve. Like he's giving it so much, and it's just like he's Dr. Wagner in The Howling, you know, like, which is a really fun performance. And it was just nice to see him here, like super committed.
Oh,
where
he's
like
a pro. He was always a pro. Yeah.
Gotta bring that pathos.
He, of course, is the lead from the original The Avengers back on the BBC, you know, so he was kind of like this big cult figure. And it does feel like, oh, wow, they brought somebody in here with a little bit of gravitas. But that does also just kind of, the big sort of twist of this movie is you're thinking they're going with this sort of like alien infestation sort of idea because you are in space and it's a heavily involving space sci-fi tropes. It turns out it's not really an alien at all. It's kind of a demon, because there's a deep spiritual connection that this priest seems to feel with whatever this interstellar monster is. Like, he seems to have a psychic understanding of what this creature is, which he calls an incubo. I've never heard it conjugated like that, but like an incubo. But he's having like a psychic reaction to it, or he's praying over it. So it becomes like kind of an Exorcist movie as well. So if you're really just wanting to, like, clearly whoever is writing this is going through some stuff. Okay. He's experiencing a lot of changes, and he's having a lot of things going on in his life. And so you can feel that there's at least a little bit of that anxiety behind it, but it is so kind of ineptly mounted and just kind of icky.
Yeah. I mean, there for for a lot of this, I think where it got its charity from me was that I love in it came no, I'm sorry, in Empire of the Bees,
Yeah,
the introduction to the transformations chapter is just called Lust in Space,
that's pretty good.
which is
Again, a better title.
yeah, no, and I think because there was a lot of it that reminded me of like these visuals that were charmingly low budget in a way, but then it was just sort of a movie in search of a movie. Like I kind of felt the same way watching this as I did watching Vicious Lips.
Okay, yeah.
Like it was sort of like, when is this really gonna get going? I kind of was into the first like 10 minutes. I was like, man, this movie started in a way I wasn't expecting. And already
hits
some
the
of the things
gas.
it's introducing, it hits the gas
Yeah.
fast. And I mean, fewer things run out of gas harder than Vicious Lips, unfortunately. It's got a
Literally
couple
and
of good-
figuratively, yeah. That's kind of the
Yeah.
text of the movie, is that they run out of gas.
They do, but I mean, at least there you've got some of the good Sue Sad songs in
Yeah.
that movie. There's no, we don't get any Rex Smith song singing in this movie. That's what it is,
We
like
don't.
really like somebody trying to distance themselves from that. And you saw this all the time where, one of my favorite subgenres is like LA 80s sleaze movies. And there's a
Yeah.
bunch of like William Webb, the director, made a bunch of them where he worked with Leif Garrett. And it's like, again,
Oh, yeah,
Leif
yeah.
Garrett's not singing. He is just trying to distance himself from that. And I am a serious actor. I
I'm
am
not
a
a teen
performer.
idol anymore. Yeah.
I'm not exactly. And so maybe that was sort of, I don't know, maybe that played into Rex Smith's swagger a little bit in this movie. He says, I'm a grown man, and like he is a grown man with an appetite. I did enjoy one of the, I don't want to say subtle, nothing in this movie is subtle, but one of the references that we didn't bring up yet that the movie makes is this almost directly rips a scene from 2001 where Gary Lockwood's character is like laying with his foot up on Hal watching A Birthday Message.
Oh,
from
yeah,
his
yeah.
parents. And I was like, man, it's like almost like shot for shot. They hired Gus Van Sant to direct that scene.
But didn't you find like that there was the DNA of much better movies, but like
Oh, sure.
something about the joy of like, oh, this feels like Alien 3, or this feels like Species 2, or this feels like even, I mean, movies that have yet to be made, like I'm like, oh, Total Recall, here we go.
Yeah.
Like it's like there's just this thinking of cinema as this tapestry where movies just flow through, and you're like, I think this feels like The Fly. This may be Alien.
Yeah.
Like, is that E.T.? I don't know, but it kind of vibes with it. Like it just, like this movie feels fluid to me, and maybe like all of Empire movies just feel fluid, of like just taking the pastiche of everything that comes before it, that will come after it, and it's just a big old river of celluloid, and it just flows. And you dip in, and you take what you want, and then you just head on downriver to the next one.
And
I
you know,
feel like that's
it is a
true.
movie. I think like most Empire movies, you can kind of engage with it to the degree that you feel comfortable. You can, it's okay to fold laundry during these movies. It's okay to look at your phone and check your emails. Like there are going to be long lulls in between like the really wild goopy stuff, and this movie gets goopy. I was texting Jared, I'm just like, yeah, they really broke the bank on their pus budget in this movie. Like they really want us to know what they are referring to, and they're laying on the pus pretty heavily. So, you can take that as you will. There's going to be a lot of sex scenes in this movie where you're seeing open sores appearing on people's backs. And then at one point, the woman turns into what I think is just directly a rip from what's the other movie? Transmutations, the Clive Barker movie that we watched.
Underworld,
before.
yeah.
Yeah. It has almost the same exact like character design, like to the degree where it's almost the same shot.
It's like,
But-
like that alien is like it looks like a slimy duck to me.
It has a beak. Yeah. Full on has a beak. Yeah. It's like somebody's wearing a chicken nose and they've got roast beef all over their face.
Yeah.
Like it's not like super cohesive, but it's kind of goopy and gross.
I when the first shot like of it just kind of like strutting down the spaceship, I was just like, this thing looks like a pelican that's just like climbed out of the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Like it is just like coming at you. But I do need to pay lip service to one scene that I thought was hilarious, but like so gloopy, where Rex is on the planet and he's starting to kind of undergo these transformations, and it's Miranda, the doctor. He's hurting, and her kind of course of action is to say, take my hand, and it's his pussy hand, and like she holds it, and it's such a tender moment, and like it's a tight squeeze, and it's tight enough that like the sores, the weeping sores on his hand actually start to like pustulate. And I just thought like what doctor in the right mind is gonna like do that? But at the same time, like it's just so, I don't know, like it was very sweet and slimy at the same time. Like I really kind of like felt for their love connection in that moment. I had a moment in this movie where I'm like, oh shit, this kind of approach is really working for me. And it's a scene where they're sitting around and he's having a conversation about his relationship with Mozart. And I'm like, there's some kind of pretty good acting in this scene happening here. Like I feel like I'm buying what they're going for. Like it feels out of place in this movie, but I'm like, okay, all right, this is something, but could either of you place where this score was recycled from? Because we have 1000% heard this score before, and I could not figure out where. But this is definitely not original to this movie.
No, and we may need to have outsource that to some people who might be listening who will know the answer to that. So definitely Spotify comment or puppetmasterscastlefreaks@gmail.com if you know the answer to that. If you go according to IMDb, I don't even actually see the music department credit for someone named Jonathan Bogner, who's the music supervisor.
Okay.
But I don't even see a composer credit. So I think really we are dealing with some recycled music here, and I'm kind of looking at if there's anything that jumps out in his filmography of where he could have stole from himself or repurposed music that he did. Now, oh yeah. Oh wow. So this dude, wow. Like finding this out in real time. This is what our fans tune into. It's like watch us find something we probably should have come prepared to the show with in real time. But here we are, and we're going for it. Just bear with me for a second while I pull back up Jonathan Bogner here.
This is a pretty good simulation of my middle school experience and my high school experience, just like making shit up on the spot. Like I definitely did not do my homework, but I'm gonna bullshit about it until I get it right.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who worked on the music department for, here we go, music supervisor for Arena. What else?
Could have been Arena.
Cemetery High, which we haven't covered yet. The Occultists, which we haven't covered yet. This movie, Buy and Sell, which we haven't covered yet. But Ghost Town, Assault of the Killer Bimbos, Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bolorama, Prison, Creepazoids, Galactic Gigolos, Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity, Ghoulies 2, Enemy Territory.
Yeah, we've
heard it somewhere.
We have a couple of options we can choose from. I want to circle back and just talk a little bit about the Rex Smith performance here, because I was going into the Mozart thing. I'm like, yeah, okay, this Mozart scene is pretty effective, but in the better movie, in a more well-designed movie, I think this character, I think we'd be exploring him a little bit more and why he is so kind of reckless with his affections, I guess. Maybe we could define him a little bit better, because what is he in this role? He's kind of like a space trucker, right? Like he's not like a military pilot, but he's like he's on the quote unquote road all the time. And just kind of going from port to port. Space is not as big and empty in this world, as it is. So it's within the context of this movie. It's not impossible that a random naked lady would show up at his spaceship, but but he's so unquestioning about everything that happens, and he's so kind of like animalistic in his pursuits. And the movie is trying to split it both ways, where it's like he is this kind of unthinking man pig, but he's also the romantic lead that we want to root for. We want to root for the relationship with the Miranda thing, which is kind of why I want to take Charles Band's side on the romantic subplot. I don't think that adds much, and if anything, it's kind of detracting from the overall theme of what you're going for with this character and who he is. Because this should be like a redemption thing. This should be an exploring. You know, a lot of good horror is like starting from somebody's inner weaknesses and then like kind of manifesting it out, or showing what happens if it spirals out of control, you know, and there's an idea of that here that just isn't really explored.
Yeah, I think in Empire of the Bees, the first a couple words of the synopsis describe him as a space smuggler.
Okay.
And I guess maybe he's envisioned as being some kind of Han Solo type, but clearly not, fleshed out to that degree.
Yeah, not quite as memorable a character, I'm gonna say.
But love saves all here. Like it's Miranda who, in effect, like cures him of his possession, whatever you I don't want to give away spoilers, but like it's her line, "I'm not afraid to love you," that and a flamethrower, of course, like kind of purges him of his whatever manifestation, whatever you want to call this, and he comes out the other end healed, cured,
right,
sanitized. And if it weren't for her, I think he would be spreading that love all over the cosmos.
Probably. Yeah. And there's maybe a darker, cooler movie where it's like, his inner demons win out in the end, and he does. As a result, he is starting to spread this like alien monster plague across the galaxy. Like you mentioned Species 2, and I'm just like, yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a germ of that. Species is maybe maybe the best, if not one of the best examples of this kind of like trashy subgenre of sci-fi, because that movie is smart enough and kind of well crafted enough that it knows what it's doing. That one gets to kind of be the trashy B movie, but also be a little subversive, because it's mostly about how very easy it is for this woman to be like causing all this harm, and it's kind of a reflection on like the male sexual identity of the 90s, so it gets to do a little bit of both. Species 2 feels a little ickier because now it's a male alien, a Malian as they call it. And it feels a little less subversive and just a little bit more like a throwback to this kind of movie, where they're maybe not examining their themes as fully as they should be.
Yeah. I maybe blanked out, so I feel like you need to correct me. But in the film, when they take off and leave the planet, they've just left the planet, and everybody on the planet is just horn dogging it. And that venereal disease is spreading like wildfire, and we never hear anything. We never go back there. Like this planet is in effect just corrupted from the genitals on up.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where it always starts,
But it's done. Exactly. Like there's no kind of like resolution to it. Like it's just like that's like they're gone, and we never hear one iota of like, well, back on the planet, like everybody is now turning into these slathering, slimy pus zombies.
Right. And they look, they found a spaceship, and maybe they're going to go to another planet. Like that's a good cliffhanger moment to leave the movie off on, and they don't really do that. Again, because they're too invested in this romantic subplot that, if anything, is not really helping the cause of this movie, I don't think. But that's maybe and again, the hallmark of this show is looking into these things a lot more deeply than the people who made it probably were, if we're being totally real. Even in the Empire era, they had slightly bigger budgets. They had slightly more time to make their movies than they did with Full Moon, but these are still not like, AAA productions. They're not even like AA productions. They're relatively expensive for what they're trying to make.
Sure.
And they but never so expensive that they can't like immediately recoup it on home video. So,
I feel like this is something that's been kind of true of maybe even more identifiable in like the how should I say this, in the movies that happened right before like right before the collapse of Empire, like the ones that were sold off. I feel like there's almost this attitude about a lot of them, like it's like that like they didn't really care about him. I feel like anything Charles Band really cared about, like Arena, Robot Jock, stuff like that, he tried to hold on to and get those made. And this one felt in a lot of ways like an afterthought, and it's kind of treated that way. Like I appreciate that Clay came in saying he wanted to be charitable and point out things about it, because this is like a uniformly detested Empire movie. And I think this is objectively better than, when we did the Tim Kincaid triple feature of Mutant Hunt and Robot Holocaust and Breeders. Like, this is more competent in a lot of ways, but it has that sort of like, it's it's a story that was written by one person, but now you have a first-time director who maybe he was an editor and an ADR guy, maybe doesn't have the best grasp in terms of like visual storytelling. Like, this movie felt very Albert Pune to me.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah.
And I tend to be an Albert Pune defender a lot of the time, but I couldn't help but think that watching this one, I was like, there's little seedlings of ideas that kind of work. And then it's just like there's an ineptitude that overtakes it in a lot of places. And I feel like this is something we've run into once you get to a certain era of I'm going to say maybe like post Eliminators Empire Pictures, even though you do get ones that clearly succeed in what they're doing. Obviously, Ghoulies 2, we think is one that works. And then there was Ghost Town, which was better made in a lot of ways than any of us were expecting it to be.
Prison, movies like that.
Prison, I mean, Prison is sort of like the example of like when all of the resources with the same. I mean, Prison clearly had a bigger budget than this one, but and more time to work on it. But what they could produce, and this just feels like another kind of like completed and tossed to the side project. And I feel like that's been everyone's attitude about this movie for the past 36 years.
Yeah, pretty much.
Until today. I have a question I have to ask you guys, and it's a little sidebar, forgive me, but
please.
Like, if this is 121 episodes in,
yes,
that's to say that you have at least watched 121 of these films.
Sure have.
How's your humanity? Like, how are you holding up? Like, do you, when you go outside and the sun is shining, like, are you just like, I need to take a bath, I need to like get out, like what is, like, how are you?
Like, we're horribly depressed,
question.
but I don't think that has anything to do with the movies themselves. No, I mean, call it Stockholm Syndrome, whatever you want. I think, and I don't want to speak for Jared necessarily, but like, I think I have come away with a deeper appreciation for just the craft of filmmaking in general, not just, and I don't even mean that necessarily just as a dig at the quality of these movies, because I think what I've come to learn about movies and how movies are getting made, it is fucking hard to make a movie. It's a miracle that movies get made at all. And a lot of these guys are being asked to make a movie in less than a week with the same budget that like Robert Downey Jr. spends on a sandwich on one Avengers movie, so like they can't, they have a lot of energy and a lot of enthusiasm, and they're being hampered by ridiculous working conditions. So like what we see on film is not necessarily a reflection of the intelligence or the work ethic or the talent of the people involved. And in fact, it's in many ways a credit to their talent and their effort that this movie exists at all in any form, because they're being given ridiculous circumstances under which to work. So I think that's where I come away with a lot of it. Every once in a while, we'll hit a movie where I'm just like, oh, this one was soul draining. And I think this movie falls just on the right side of that borderline. It's like, if this was 10% worse, if this was like 10% more poorly lit, then I would probably have it on that dismal side of it. In this case, I have it sort of in the odd curio category, but that's my relationship with it. I don't know if that's similar to yours, Sharon.
The reason why I ask, I don't know how many I've watched, but I probably could count them under 50, under 30. So for you to have watched this many, I I'm like, beyond your well-being, it's that idea of like, I'm coming into today being like, oh, this was fine. This is like, like if this was on Cinemax at like 1:30 in the morning, I'd be like, okay, totally.
That's,
yeah.
yeah.
But like to be the triple digits and just be like I feel like I need to buy you guys dinner or something because or at least a stiff drink because it just
Look,
it's
I
taking its
won't say
toll.
no. But I think it really truly helps that most of these movies are like 85 minutes soaking wet. Like I think
Oh, yeah.
these do not overstay their welcome. A lot of them are harmless enough that maybe they're just like not embedding in my brain beyond the length of like recording a podcast about it. But
Yeah.
but I am just kind of like fascinated by these curious little subgenres of movies, and like I like the idea of digging really, really deep, and looking in these little corners that are gathering cobwebs, So
Yeah.
there's a scavenger hunt kind of element.
Sure.
To it that I
And
enjoy.
there's an itch. There's an itch to this that gets scratched doing the show, even when we watch sort of like the bottom of the barrel stuff, which is like, speaking for myself as someone who was a video store kid, like I'm still always happy to kind of discover something that's obscure and weird. Like even if it's hard to sit through, even if it, takes a toll on my patience and things like that. Like Steve mentioned, these movies tend to run from about 60 to 85 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's like, even if we waste 75 minutes on a movie, I always kind of walk away feeling like most of the time like that there's a better, that there are worse ways to spend 80 minutes or something on most of these, unless it's Evil Bong.
Yeah. Those are the ones that we've really struggled to get through. Like something about a bad horror movie is so much more palatable than a bad comedy. And so that's where we really struggle.
And there's clearly like somewhere in our audience, there's someone who hears our bumpers for the next episode and is really just sitting there tapping their pencil on the desk going, when are they going to get back to another Evil Bong sequel? We have been putting it off like the plague. Like we've been,
we have eight more of those to watch. Yeah.
I know. And I've been, when it's come to like networking and booking people and stuff like that, I'm like purposefully sending them like spreadsheets that don't include the Evil Bong sequels on them. It's like, we need to find the perfect, the perfect time to kind of rip that Band-Aid off. And we
really do.
We toyed with the idea of doing it earlier this year and having them all just be April releases with no guests, just 4 double episodes, knock them all out.
Wow.
And then it was just the idea of that looming in the background. It was like, no, we can't do that.
Yeah,
So
that's where it gets bleak. But
okay, I know where the bar is now. The Evil Bong is that's when I get the invite to come on for Evil Bong, I know I'm in trouble. Evil Bong 5.
It'll be because we know we need somebody cool to help us get through that movie with wit and energy. So we really do. I mean, I think we may have about exhausted what we can say about Transformations, the movie. So I thank you so much for being here on this movie and lending your perspective on it, because this is a wild cut. Probably not the movie you were expecting to see or expecting to come out of it, but hopefully you got something memorable out of it.
That's my slutty nature.
That's your slutty nature coming back. Papa nature, mama nature. Together they're making that slutty nature.
Slutty nature. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
Well, obviously you have your hit single Slutty Nature out there. Everybody knows about that. But what else would you like to promote? Where else can people find your stuff? You're a published author, you're a very successful horror writer. Where can people find you?
I mean, I'm on the interwebs for sure. I guess I should, if there's a book that you're looking to read, it couldn't be, well, maybe it is worse than Transformations, but the most recent thing is called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. And yeah, it's out there in bookstores, wherever books are sold. And yeah, that's my pitch.
That's a great pitch.
Better than Transformations. Marginally okay.
Yeah, and I will say this, and again, I sometimes do this, and it is terrible radio, but I will totally back that endorsement as I hold my copy of Wake Up and Open Your Eyes up to the camera here. There it is.
Oh yeah,
Very,
and
very
there's
cool.
the blurb, Kirkus Review, better than Transformations. Oh,
Better than
strange.
transformation.
Yeah.
It is
So
that
that's
is
what it
weird
says
that
on-
they chose that as their benchmark. Yeah,
You know?
every book is compared to the 1988 film Transformations.
Yeah, it's weird.
Better-
There's two poll quotes on the front, one from Jordan Peele and one from Stephen Graham Jones, and they both just say better than Transformations.
Yeah, hey, those guys would know. Amazing. I'm excited. I want to read this book. I have ordered my copy already, so I'm excited to check this out.
Rex Smith will be
Yes.
doing the film adaptation. He's starring in the lead. So we're bringing him out of Broadway obscurity as we speak.
Sexy Rex, apparently his nickname. Sexy Rexy was
It's
his nickname
it's
according
his
to
Instagram
IMDb.
handle.
Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah.
Yeah, and you also have him on the hook to do the new audiobook, right?
Oh my
I mean,
God.
I would think that was probably the natural progression.
There would be a part of me that would be just so over the moon happy to have that be a truth, be real. Like if it, oh
yeah.
my God. Because I would be the guy who would be like, hi, Mr. Smith, you don't know me. You're narrating my audiobook, but I just want to say I am a big fan of Transformations. And then he would probably quit the job. He would probably say, I can't do this anymore. I'm off.
He's got his limits. We all have our limits.
Oh my God.
Well, if you pick up a copy of Wake Up and Open Your Eyes or any of Clay McLeod Chapman's other books, you will find something that you love. I am sure about it. If you love what we do and the show that we bring you on a weekly basis, the best way to show us is to go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Leave us a 5-star rating, maybe a brief review if you feel so inclined to do so. You can keep up with the show to most up to date on Instagram. You can follow us at puppetmasters_castle freaks. You can follow me at _giallo or Steve _giallo_jared or Steve at Minotaur Matador. Yes, we update on Blue Sky and Threads, and you can hear audio versions of the show on YouTube. We will eventually get more exposure out there, but it's hard because as well researched, except for today, as this show usually is, Steve, has to do this for a completely different show that he has to do and promote and all that. So, Steve, what else have you got going on?
Well, I've also got a podcast called Cinema Arcade, and that's cinema and arcade all mashed together. That is what we do. We talk about movies and the video games that were made based on those movies, which gives us an opportunity to talk about a very, very eclectic range of films. Just this month alone, we've talked about The Karate Kid, Chicken Run, The Warriors, Babe. I'm recording an episode on Independence Day this evening. We've got upcoming movies that are going to be really strange. I only just recently learned through a mutual podcasting friend, Diana Goodman, that there is technically a game based on the 1960 movie The Hustler starring Paul Newman. So I am going to be doing an episode on The Hustler along with its Sega Genesis game. So deeply strange thing that we can come across on that. But you can find that.
Was there not an original NES Color of Money game?
Shockingly, no. Shockingly, they missed that opportunity. They left that money on the table, the pool table. But be sure to check us out next week because we are going to be covering a movie that I don't really know too much about, but one of those titles that really kind of does a lot of the legwork. It's called Prison of the Dead. And in between, we're going to have a little cool bonus episode for you guys. We'll just tease that out. We won't tell you what that's going to be, but we're going to have a little bonus episode that you can hear this coming Tuesday. And then next Friday, you will hear us talk about Prison of the Dead, which I believe is from 2003, somewhere around there. 2000 on the dot. So early aughts, full moon film, prison, death.
Right in there,
that.
peak Dave Parker, Danny Draven introduction to Full Moon. So like we've been finding a lot of fun stuff in the late Kushner lock right before the or I guess that would be Tempe actually.
Yeah,
right before the Shadow, but the Devin Hamilton ones that come after that. But that's going to be a fun episode, and you're definitely going to be interested in what we have coming up for the bonus. So if you don't follow our social media, you're not going to know beforehand what it is. If you go to our Instagram and go to our other social media accounts, you will see teaser posts for the bonus episode. And I guarantee you're going to think that it's pretty fun. So thank you again to Clay McLeod Chapman for taking the time, spinning the wheel and talking about transformations with us. And we will see you next week for Prison of the Dead.